Dr. Ryan Hall, friend and transplant surgeon here in town, transplant like medical. So, Dr. Hall, you're a great friend and a great leader here in the city and in the church, but you didn't grow up in a home like mine. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and your upbringing and all.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Pastor Joel. So I grew up in a tiny town in Oklahoma, and at least for the first part of my childhood, my parents didn't really follow God, especially my dad. He, had a lot of drugs and alcohol and a lot of things around, and as, was mentioned earlier, he worked at night, and then he slept all day, and then he partied all the weekends, talking about it now, it sounds crazy, but at the time, when you're little, that's the only life you know, right? And so I didn't know that my life was like different than anybody else. And, as I got older, you kind of realized like, wait a minute, this isn't the way everybody else is living. And, as you grow, you start realizing like, man, I cry more than other people, I think. This is a sadder situation than maybe what it should be. And there's a lot of, embarrassment or shame and things that come with that. And, I was, really blessed, Pastor Joel, that, there were a lot of people that were praying for us. And God just really miraculously kind of turned my dad's life around like in a day. And, he went to rehab and came home a different person. And, freely said that, hey, it was Jesus that changed my life. And, as you mentioned a minute ago, and, that changed the whole course of our whole family. And, for me as a young boy, I've got my boys here, I think back that, I saw that as, God did that for me and showed me, how much he loved me, but, changing the course of my dad's life and our family, so.
Yeah. And Dr. Hall, what would you say to somebody in your situation? Because you had to, a young boy or somebody in that situation where there is addictions and dysfunction and, maybe speak to somebody about that.
Sure. I think the biggest thing that, I felt after that was, there's still hurt and there's still things that might try to take you a different direction, and it's almost like you have glasses on that, you always see life or certainly see God through the lens of kind of what you went through. And so I would say, there's nothing you can do that could ever make God happier with you, that he's proud of you, that there's nothing that is broken about you that he couldn't fix. And there's nothing that's tainted about your story. He doesn't look at you as second class or because of what you've been through or because of anything you've done or you've been around. I used to really think that, I was one step away from, God was really going to get me, if I did something wrong. And, I always felt like, you had to do just everything right. And then there's a time in life where maybe you can use that as, your motivation to be great in something. And God really, had to give me a different picture of that. And, I saw this picture like I was, this may sound silly, but, it's like I was a balloon, and he's the air that filled me up and he was the wind that was carrying me too, it's like he had me both ways. And somebody told me like, Ryan, God would have to cease to be God for you to miss him if you're at all looking for him. Yeah. And so regardless of what you've been through, if you just have just a little bit, a desire to look towards God, I'm telling you, He'll go out of his way. He'll move heaven and earth for you to make sure that you know how much he loves you. You can trust him.
Yeah, so. I love that. One more thing, Ryan. I love that, Dr. Hall. One more thing, because you came from humble beginnings, but now you're a leading surgeon here. So maybe speak to somebody a little. I don't even know your story there, but somebody's, looking for a dream and it looks impossible, but it seemed pretty impossible for you to be where you are.
Yeah, there's no, God doesn't have any limits. There's nothing hard for him, right? You mentioned, a liver transplant or something like that, you might look at, I see Dr. Todd's in here. Things in medicine look hard, right? But, I'm growing up, in a little trailer house in the middle of, nowhere, whatever. I loved it. It was fine. But, looking around here, I'm like, what am I doing here? But God has a purpose for your life that's not just you. Right? And the things that he has for you, he has for his kingdom and for his purposes. And so, in my life, I'm just happy, he could have said, hey, go sit in that ditch over there. I'd have been fine with that, But if he wants you to take you wherever he wants to take you, it's not up to you, to be blunt, I guess. So there's no real limitations for what he has. It's all the same to him. So, don't be limited. The things he drops in your heart, you don't have to settle for something. He's not just trying to fix you and get you out of an addiction or get you out of a bad situation. He's going to remake everything, and there's no telling where you'll go. So
yeah, it's so good. I love that.